Hi everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the Dairy Experience podcast. This is episode 9 called Optimised Feeding. So my name is Graham Petrie and with me today is Loren Greensill. So dairy farm nutrition, dairy cow nutrition, it's a pretty broad subject, but is essential to keep your cows healthy and productive, to have a good proper nutritional diet for them. And that includes them containing the ingredients that keep the cow producing milk to a full potential and getting in calf. Her balanced diet must include such components as energy, protein, minerals and vitamins, and of course clean water. Feeding management, monitoring and making adjustments are all part of any farmer's job. And as I've said, I'm here today with Loren to discuss that. So welcome, Loren.
Hello.
So the first thing we wanted to touch on was, what is your background and experience with dairy farming and with nutrition?
Cool. So I have been brought up on a dairy farm and kind of loved it since I was a young kid. Always wanted to be out there. So I followed that passion and studied a degree in agricultural science before then moving on to work in the fertiliser industry for a couple of years, and then travelled farming overseas, came back home and knuckled down on the home farm. And then, got into a bit of animal nutrition work as well. So started with OSP stock feeds in 2019, I believe. So coming up 6 years. So that's kind of my background. Yeah.
Very good. So did you say overseas? Whereabouts did you?
Yep. So we knew we wanted to go down the robotics side of it. So I wanted to go see how it worked overseas. So I decided to go and farm in Ireland, and it was only meant to be a 3-month stint, and I ended up there for a year and was just really fortunate on the farm I ended up on. The farmer was kind of a little bit over it, so I got to take the reins, so it was really nice. That's where I got to do my first real on-hands experience at management and everything like that, and just he was great support, and just kind of learning the different systems and being overseas, being able to travel to different countries and kind of see what systems they had and how we could implement it or bring parts of it back to New Zealand. So it was awesome. You
hear a lot about Ireland being comparable to New Zealand, like the pasture-based system. I know some of the genetics companies based here sell genetics, grazing genetics over there.
Definitely, like the farm I was on, he wanted to be like a New Zealand dairy farm, so I think we were milking 230 to 250 cows, pretty big for Ireland at the time, and he was breeding LIC crossbred genetics, and wanted to move to a strong pastoral base. I remember it was the summer I was there was their first ever real drought, and I suggested, why don't we feed grass silage in the paddock, and I got looked at sideways, and within a few days we started, and then all the neighbours started because they saw, it was just that we do this at home, why don't you give it a go? And I think it was really cool to have that, just that contrast of somebody who was willing to listen to your suggestions but also go with it.
So could you highlight for us the importance of the optimising the feeding in dairy farming and the role that robotics can play in that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, obviously, if you don't feed your cows, you can't essentially make milk. So I've always grown up with that. We had a farm consultant who was always really big on making sure the cows were fed optimally, but also that they were doing their best production per kilo of body weight. So I think that's always been drilled into me. It wasn't about making these big fat Oompa Loompa cows. It was about the right feed to be producing milk. And I think, without feed you don't get milk essentially, and that's the whole game, but it's about the right feeds essentially, and making sure the diet is doing what you need it to. I mean, there's times when they need to put condition on, so you've got to look at your carbohydrates and starches then, or there's, times, and it's just about balancing what you can. I think that's always been pushed to me, and it's finally become a reality that we can start to do that. We'd always been like a traditional system 1 or 2, so grass silage was about the biggest input we'd ever had, and looking at robotics, it was like, wow, we can in-shed feed, we can feed various different feed types, we can feed per production level, we can feed per class of animal, we can feed, we calve multiple times a year, so the different groups can get their desired feed rather than, feeding a cow that's due to dry off what an autumn calver who's freshly calved needs. So it's definitely given us that ability to look at,
so this
individualized.
Today is the last week of March. We're in the last week of March. So just tell us, I see the cows are getting some silage there, Bailey.
Yes.
So touch a little bit on what that is and what are you feeding in the robot at the moment?
Yeah. So at the moment they're getting grass silage and maize silage in the feed face, and then they are getting a dry blend through the robot. So they're getting on average 3 kilos a day. Obviously, depending on their lactation stage and stuff, some of them are getting 4 or 5, some of them are only getting 2 if they're not producing. And that consists of a little bit of palm kernel, soya hulls, and DDG predominantly. We went with the DDG initially, our cows had never been fed in shed, so it was a matter of enticing them to eat in shed, and we're fortunate that we can add all our minerals, everything through there, and then they also get, I think it's up to 1/2 kilo of molasses a day in the robot. So it's my girls have gone from nothing to all the treats really. It's a it's a complete 360.
So the change from milking through the herringbone shed and how you fed them in the paddock to now, what were you feeding apart from the silage? Were you feeding much else to them at all?
We were sometimes doing some summer crops. We were traditionally turnips, but when we started bottling our milk, we realised that it would taint the flavour. So we had to move to green feed maize, which was, that was awesome. High producing crop, and you could plant it really late and get a really good yield off it. So we really benefited from that. But I suppose the biggest difference we've noticed going from feeding in the paddock to having the ability to feed in the feed faces is just the reduction in wastage. We were feeding probably a ton in the paddock, and they were clean. Well, we thought they were cleaning it up, but they weren't really. No. We came in here and fed a ton of grass silage, and it took them 4 days to eat it. That just showed us how much wastage there was, and it. We did all our feed budgeting based on that kind of wastage. Now we're like suddenly going, okay, we're going to have grass silage, which is great, but you always knew there was some loss, but the utilisation in here is amazing.
Well, we have other robot farmers who have a barn or something like that, so they're grazing their hybrid system, and even if it's the middle of summer, they feed. If they have to feed anything, it's fed in the barn, so the wastage or the utilisation is 96% plus. And it costs the same whether you're going to throw it out or whether you're going to feed it. That cost is still there, so it's best to utilise as much of it as you can. Yeah, and it is, as you say, the wastage is so little, and you can play with it a little bit more. You can say, let's up it slightly and see how it goes, and you're not playing that guessing game of how much extra is being wasted in the paddock. You can tell exactly this is what went down their throats today. It's definitely given us the ability to be more precise, which is awesome. So you farm here with your father? Yes, Layne. So between the two of you, are you more the nutrition, what they get, what their diet is, percentages and amounts? We kind of, it's always like a talking point between us, which is great. Like we get on really well, and we're always forever ringing one another, discussing things. I think, it's great. We're always just talking about it and going, should we up it? Should we down it? And it's about, Layne does the feeding out. Like, I hate being in a tractor. I'll put my hand up. So either him or my partner Reese are feeding out, and it's great. They'll be like, they left a bit more behind, or we've upped it today. So we're always just talking and making those adjustments depending on what we're seeing. We really thought probably we were feeding our cows fully, and it's been a bit of a shock to the system. Bit of a learning curve it really has to now be feeding them, the same that they would have got in the paddock and a whole lot more, and they're definitely So going forward, like we're March now, and you'll milk winter milk. Yes. So have you thought of what changes will be from today to say the middle of July or middle of winter? What will be fed and where? I think we'll keep the feeding on the feed face pretty similar. Another benefit for us with this system now, and obviously our new shed, is that we can feed a lot more consistently. So we can feed
at least what they're getting inside, whether it be through the robots or on the feed face, that's consistent. So whatever's happening in the paddocks not having as huge of an effect on them as possible. So yeah, I think we'll try to leave it as much as possible. Obviously, if grass growth declines, then we'll increase the amount going through the shed, but it's not really our intention. We want to utilise the pasture we have first and then top them up with whatever they need. So that's always been our aim. We've always been really pasture driven, and we still want to be pasture driven, but it's just about kind of fine tuning and giving them a
So
little bit more.
you've never had to, even with this system or your previous farming system, had to buy in your silage, maize silage. You've always done it yourself.
Yeah, we've got enough
Self-sufficient.
land area to be able to kind of supply ourselves. So it's really nice that we can grow all of our own homegrown feed. We know what goes into it. We can harvest it when it suits us. Kind of been bucking a few things, like chopping our maize silage a little bit greener than people would traditionally do, because we are milking on it, so we want a higher protein versus the traditional systems usually to dry them off or winter them on. So yeah, we've just been making those changes, and it's hard to get our head around, because you talk to everyone and they want it to be chopped at 30% starch or or dry matter, and it's just we're trying to find that balance between the right starch content but also the right protein content so that it works for our cows. So it's a learning curve, and we're not there yet, but we're working on it and just defining how where's the balance point for us with our crops and our.
So taking off your farmer hat and putting on your OSP stock feeds hat, where do you think farmers typically go wrong with feed that they supply or don't supply for their cows?
I think it's a tough one. I think there's been a lot of confusion, and a lot of people have possibly overcomplicated things. I look back to probably some of my top producing customers, and they are the ones who do the simple things really well.
Yes.
And then they've added in the little, icing on the cake thing. So they might have always had a really good farming system, and then they've put an in-shed feeding system in, and that's just where they've been able to utilise that extra production. I think it's a tricky one. We're in an industry which is obviously very driven by not the farmer. We're driven by suppliers and cost-wise, and then whoever's buying our milk, they drive the price. So farmers kind of are price takers in every direction. So it is really tough, and I think farmers do a bloody good job with what they've got. I think.
So what are your top tips for feeding, whether it's in shed or paddock? Or
I think keep it simple. Do what suits your farming system. I think a lot of people look at their neighbour and go, why aren't we doing it that way? Or but if it works for you, why do you have to do what your neighbour's doing? I think find a system that works for you, definitely, and stick with it. Do the basics right, pasture quality, and making sure those cows are full. And it's not always going to be full on. You might be putting expensive meal in, but actually all you need is a bit of hay or straw just to keep their tummies full. It's about keeping that rumen full. And I think we've often look at the cost of feed and go, oh, that must be a great feed because it's the most expensive. But it's about finding that balance of what do they need at this time rather than trying to poke something in that's not quite necessary. Right, it's a tough one.
So what feed types my question is, what feed types are common in New Zealand compared to Australia? But if I think with your Irish farming experience, perhaps comparing New Zealand with Ireland.
Okay.
And is it cost effective what they are doing over there for them?
Yeah, it was definitely different over there. Like where I was, they were feeding a lot of soybean meal, which at the time was really affordable. I believe it's not as affordable for them at the moment. And I believe that they've started to use a bit more palm kernel through Europe, which when I was there, it wasn't really a product that was used. So different systems. I know, like obviously here I can talk about what we've got available. Like we've got the DDGs. We've got quite a lot of byproducts that are available to us. And I think they've been available because of the whole shipping thing.
True,
so we've had lots of timber and stuff going out, so countries have wanted to bring things in. So that's been really beneficial. So, we've got really good protein sources like canola, soybean meal, and then some DDGs. And then we obviously grow a lot of starches in New Zealand with our kibbled maize. Some of that I believe is imported from Australia as well. And yeah, I suppose being so close to Australia, we can get our hands on those. Even North to South Island, I mean, we don't have a lot of, crushed barley or wheat or anything like that, where my friends farming down south, that's all they feed, so
they got it handy there.
Yeah, they've got it handy, and it's a lot more cost effective for them, whereas for us, like, it's bloody expensive to get it. A little bit's growing in the Manawatu, but
does your stock feeds come from Auckland truck down or New Plymouth?
New Plymouth or Tauranga, or just kind of we get like all our kibble maize and stuff from the Hawke's Bay, so try to keep it as local as possible. But yeah.
So now that you've had experience with the robotic feeding system, so how do you see that it optimises the efficiency that you need, reduces waste, and ensure the cows get the precise nutrition that each individual cow needs?
Yeah, I think just the information that the robot's giving us allows us to make the right decisions. Getting our weights, getting our milk yields, we can kind of go, okay, that cow's losing a bit of weight, let's give her a bit more food, or she's really getting quite chunky, and she's not producing.
Like your dogs.
yeah, like the Labradors.
Yeah.
So, it gives us the ability to kind of do that. And I mean, like, there's a few settings there which I don't even have to look at. Like, I've set from the start, like, if they're doing X amount, they only get 2 kilos, but if they're doing, up into the next few brackets of production, they get more. And I think it's really nice to just know that I kind of set those parameters, and I can go back and look at them if I want, but I don't have to be looking every day at it either. Because I kind of suppose the whole point of going robotic was to, not be as labour intensive. So
do you individualise per cow what they get, or do you group the cows, ages, or stage of lactation?
Been grouped because we're kind of we're only 4 months into startup, so we grouped initially based on production.
True. Right.
So that was kind of where we grouped, and now that we're autumn calving, we're just going through like the process of probably these autumn calvers need a little bit more, they deserve a little bit more to get through the winter, whereas some of those spring girls who are dropping off their production, then they don't need so much. But if they're producing, then they're getting fed, and I think that's the biggest thing, is that a dairy cow, as long as she's producing, to me, I don't care what stage of lactation, what age she is, she gets fed, and she gets fed properly. I mean, they all get fed properly, but they get a little bit more treats.
Yeah. So have you've thought about extending lactation, like not traditionally 305, but going, that's another whole season? That's
our goal. I mean, we've been doing it for, 19 years. We've been split calving, so it's nothing new to us. We've just gone from 2 calvings to 3. I've just finished mating, which the whole point is to keep that milk curve as flat as possible. And for us, it's about, I don't really mind if she doesn't get in calf as long as she's producing. And I always remember sitting in a lecture at uni being told that a cow won't produce for more than 300 days and getting absolutely wrecked over the knuckles for trying to debate it with my lecturer. And I remember ringing Dad and being like, she's crazy. Like, we've got cows, who have done 600-700 days and they're still producing. That's definitely our goal. I mean, the biggest stress on a cow obviously is calving. And it's, that's where you can have your potential biggest losses. For us, as long as she is in good condition, she's producing and she's happy, then I don't see any reason to get her in calf, essentially. We've often found, like, our better producing cows have gone 18 months between getting in calf anyway.
So you've already done that?
We've already noticed that. Like, it's like kind of every 3rd pregnancy test with the vets. I'm like, don't worry, it's going to be it's going to be a horror show for you guys, but it's perfect for me because I can tell you who's going to be in calf and I can tell you who's not. So like, it definitely, it's not a concern for me, but I can see how, like, obviously in a traditional system, if you're spring calving, you want those girls producing really well, dried off in calf sort of thing.
So we talked before we started recording that you're up to 2.7 milkings a day. So you've noticed increased productivity from your cows?
We're still kind of getting there. It's that whole learning curve.
As you say, 3 months is not a long time.
3 months is really tough, and we went from a really, like, old school system with we didn't even herd test. So we couldn't really tell what our cows were probably doing. But it's given us like the ability to just look at individual cows, make decisions on them, and yeah, to have got to that 2.7 within 3.5 months is I'm pretty happy with. I mean, it's all about teaching that cow to come in, get milked. I mean, every time she drops milk, it encourages her to produce more milk. So it's it's inevitable that eventually, the goal was we started with our spring calvers and we started in December. So they were 6 months into their lactation essentially. And we didn't really worry about, what their production was. It was about getting them comfortable, trained
Used
into
to
the shed.
Yeah.
And then I said once my autumn girls started calving, which was on the 15th of March, that was when we were going to really push production. So like these girls, I think we've had 15 calve. Like they're my girls that are, they've got to shine. It's time for them to start shining. So to see that we're doing 2.7 on a herd average, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. It's really great because obviously there's a few of those spring girls who aren't milking as often, and obviously some who are doing more than that. So
So with the robotic system, you get a lot of data back from every milking. So do you use that to make decisions on feeding? How much feed? What the composition of the feed is, or anything?
I think we use it more to determine, like at the moment we're using it a little bit more to determine who continues milking and who doesn't, but in turn that means that obviously whoever's left behind, whoever doesn't get dried off, then they're getting more feed. So it kind of is, our whole point is, why are we feeding a cow who's potentially not returning? So at the moment, but definitely moving forward, our goal will be to use that information to utilise the feed that's going into them. It's kind of, as we progress, it will become more refined, but it's been so focused on just getting the system up and running for now, and learning the information. As you say, there's so much comes through every day, and it's it can be quite boggling. And it's like it's just a learning.
You said the cows are learning the system. I've got to learn the system, but I think also the farmer has to you get up to speed with it and know what the data means and what they can do with the data they're getting.
Definitely. And I think for us it was like we'd always break fed in the paddock so that they were always getting fresh grass every break, but we went from 2 breaks to 3 breaks, and it was just it was a huge mind game around, holy heck, how do we split this? And I know, like, I listened back to a couple of podcasts and spoke to Briar, and I was like, am I doing it right? We initially had 3 even breaks and that wasn't working. They weren't leaving a paddock, and then it would just throw the whole day out. So then we dropped back to like 40% for the 2-day breaks and 20% for the overnight break. But they're still in that break still available for the same time period, and all of a sudden within 2 or 3 days it like changed. It was like we had cows moving, which was the whole point. So I think we probably underestimated how much the feed in the paddock would influence their movement. But now they're pretty good. Like, we've definitely got more grass that we're in the autumn, and break sizes have stayed the same as they were over the summer, and they're still moving, which is really nice to see. That it was a little bit tough for us, I suppose, in those early days, because you kind of had to restrict a little bit in the paddock to train them, and that was a bit of a mind game for us. But that's kind of why we did it with that group that was 6 months into their lactation too, not a freshly calved group. So
it's not a normal farmer's thing to restrict.
No,
pasture.
We hated it. I absolutely dreaded it. So I was like feeding more and more in the shed if I could, because at least they knew they came in here, and I knew they were still getting the same quantity, but it was difficult. It was really difficult for me. They probably thought it was fine, but it was definitely hard on the human, not on the cow.
So that you use ABC grazing here?
Yep.
So was that a new thing, or had you sort of had been doing that, or not?
No,
really?
That was completely new to us. So we'd always been kind of doing like a day and a night break. It had differed. I mean, we'd had a season on once a day when I had our son, and that was kind of just followed our nose around the farm, and then we went back to twice a day, so I split the farm into 2 again, and it was different. And then it was kind of like we could see what was coming with the ABC, and it was like, right, where do we split our blocks, what sizes do we make those blocks, and like the farm's not perfectly in 3 blocks, so we just have to make little changes as we go.
So with the shed being in a new position to the previous herringbone shed and some new fencing and stuff, like, was it a big shift to try and make it work? Do you have to do much? Not really. We did all the fencing, and then we
I went to put them in the paddocks the first day and I went, oh, good one, Loren. We hadn't moved the water troughs. So the water troughs are down the bottom when they needed to kind of be up the top of paddocks. And it was like, we'd moved the gateway to the top. I hadn't moved the trough. So, just some of those things that we'd foreseen. But, I mean, we've got them sorted now. So, it didn't take too much. And I think we'd been planning this for a long time. Like, it wasn't just let's do this and what changes do we have to make. We'd travelled around Europe looking at different systems and stuff like that. So we just... I might just pause there.
We tried to keep going.
I was trying. They're going to bark. So I think just travelling, looking at different systems, it gave us a much better idea as to how we could implement things on our own property. And we've always wanted the whole, other than the taking the labour out of it and getting more information, it was also about the cows having the choice and the cows being happy. I mean, happy cows is what's going to give us the best return.
Yes.
So I really focused on how can we make that happen, and by doing our research early on, it gave us a lot of time to, we've sat down with many a farm maps, split them up multiple times and been like, they go up to the hilly block between midnight and 9 a.m, which is when it's coolest. So in summer, they're utilising eating that grass. Whereas, if I was sending them up there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they'd probably hate me for it. So, it was just, we've had the time to refine things, I think, which we're very fortunate for.
So do you have water here in the shed?
Yep.
Troughs, yep. So have you noticed with the feed in the robots, the hard feed, so to speak, that their water consumption has gone up? Are they drinking more?
They're definitely, I don't know if they'd be drinking more. I probably haven't looked at it close enough. But they're definitely, we didn't have water in the shed, or we had a trough, but it wasn't like plumbed up. So we were constantly filling it. And now that it's plumbed up, you can see they're a lot happier.
Yes,
So I think, just definitely having that feed available and then water available. Water's just as important as feed.
Yes.
I mean, this are the two components that make milk, right?
True.
So,
what do you see as emerging trends and innovations in feeding technology and practice? And how do you think that might shape dairy farming?
Oh, I reckon if we got a vector, we'd be away laughing.
Yes.
It's a great innovation. No. I think there's obviously a lot more in that space around technology and feeding. For us, I think, if we're feeding, I don't want it to be a full-time other job for somebody. And that was always my biggest concern, was we need things to be simple. And it doesn't matter what system you have, whether you've got a basic in-shed feeding system or you've got a high-tech, herd home or something like that. It needs to be really simple for people. Because labour's harder to find, and I think it's just taking away a lot of that human error.
Yes.
So for us here, we're getting a Juno to push up the feed, which will keep it. The cows will be really happy with. It's just, I mean, at the moment we're on the broom, which is fine. But if I don't get here because something happens in my day, obviously, they're still reaching out for feed and that sort of stuff, which isn't desirable. And then, in terms of the vector that can come along and feed multiple times a day, well, I've seen those operate in Ireland and in the Netherlands, and I think, man, that's pretty cool. Those cows are pretty content all the time. Like, that's our end goal, I suppose. And
do you know of if there's much research being done into feeding on dairy farms?
There always is. I know there's been a lot of work around emissions and stuff lately, but
yes, that was my next question, to reduce the methane emissions.
It's kind of, they've been talking a lot about more around the kind of transportation of getting the feeds into New Zealand, which I think is a really tough one because we're so isolated. And we've only got the ability to grow so many different types of feed because of our climate. So, it's really tough because you look at what a dairy cow does and she turns byproducts, rubbish, into food. Like, it's just phenomenal. And yet someone wants to go and chuck a bit of an emission tax on there, and it's like, well, what else would be done with that product? Dumped at sea, or it's really tough. Like, I know we've got to get it here, but it's kind of part of that process of utilising waste.
It's better to be used by us than not used at all. I know palm kernel used to be just dumped. Exactly.
And like, I know, like, definitely the amount that I would probably be suggesting to customers has significantly reduced, and that's great, but it's still got its place, in terms of keeping price down, and it's really great for transferring minerals, if you've got loose minerals, which again, if you've got loose minerals, it keeps the cost down. So it's all of those things that it's a tough one, I think. We've heard a lot of talk around the emissions, and we've heard a lot of talk around even like your kind of Fonterra shed inspections and brought in feed and stuff like that, but it's kind of, if you're utilising it, I don't see that personally. I don't see the issue with it, and I've always kind of struggled with it. I mean, we've had a bit of pushback on I think it was some soybean meal. One particular customer was like, I heard that it's going to really push my emissions up, and I'm like, yeah, but it's a bloody good product, and is your production going to outweigh that? So I think there's some serious work to still go into that research. I think they've done a lot of work at looking at different pastures and different crops. I mean, we personally see like pastures are lasting 3 to 5 years, and it's like that's not what you expect out of a perennial pasture. So
no. And
obviously climate, there are things that are changing that, but it's around what can we do to most utilize feed, how we grow it, and all of those types of things.
So most of the pasture here and on the other farm that you make silage from, are they your traditional ryegrass, clover mixes? No plantain or any of those chicories? No, we
haven't gone down that route. If anything, we've started adding a bit of like coxfoot back into our pastures, just it's a bit hardier. We've found we just they just haven't been lasting, and it's pretty depressing when you've got to go back 3 years later and re-drill it, and it's like,
for a perennial ryegrass you don't expect that.
Whereas we've had annuals last 2 seasons, and it's like, especially when you look at the cost of the seed or things like that, you're like, well, why didn't I just plant it an annual and re-drill it every year? Well, and you obviously get that huge growth over the winter as well, so it's
your costs are the same to spray a paddock, to cultivate, or direct drill, as if you're putting in an annual or a perennial. Those costs are fixed, sort of thing.
No, definitely. I think we're not cropping here as much, so it's kind of different for us to look at a paddock and go, oh shit, that paddock needs re-drilling. I think because traditionally you did it in a cropping system, and you went turnips or maize and then into that. So that's just one little thing we've got to deal with, I suppose, and get our heads around. But it's good.
Look, my final question is really and this might be answered by your experience overseas and with the stock food company you work for. In what ways can New Zealand dairy farmers improve the way they feed their animals?
I think just looking at your animals, knowing your animals, and definitely just doing what's best for your farming system. I think I said it earlier that it's you just got to do what's right for you. Don't worry about everyone else. I think I think go back to some of the basics. We don't feed maybe enough fibre, enough hay and straw during the winter months to dry cows. Transition feeding is like a big thing that I'm into, but it's still something. It's finding how we can do that for dairy cows and in systems where our pastures don't allow us to take a trough of feed out to transition feed in the middle of winter. It's not really. It's trying to. You've got these ideals, theories, and it's trying to find a way to implement them to be practical, I suppose, on farm. But I think transition feeding has been something I've probably worked with a few customers on over the last few years, and I think they've definitely seen a really big increase in that early lactation production. So well,
look, thanks, Loren. Long-time dairy farmer and a fairly short robotic dairy farmer. So look, thank you for your talking with us today. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now you say that's a wrap.
All right.